Welcome to MK True Crime. I'm Matt Murphy, your host for today. I'm a former homicide prosecutor and author of the Book of Murder, and here's what's on today's docket.
My purpose in getting the guns was to protect myself in case my father or my mother came at me to kill me.
The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder. Mrs. Adelson, control yourself.
I found one phone number that kept coming up.
We gotta nail this son of a...
I really didn't know what to say.
This is disgusting.
No way.
Crazy that someone that close could do something like that.
You know what's crazy? Trusting the government or some random insurance agent to give good Medicare support. That's how people wind up stuck in the wrong plan. Get this. Trump's Department of Justice sued 3 major Medicare brokers for pretending to be unbiased while allegedly pushing people into the plans that got the brokers the biggest kickbacks. Let's be honest, the government made a mess of Medicare, and no one should have to untangle that mess alone. It's overwhelming. This is why I want to tell you about Chapter. Chapter compares every single plan nationwide, not just the ones that pay the biggest commissions. Because of that, they can save people an average of $1,100 a year. That's real dough. So whether you're brand new to Medicare or you've been on it for years, consider making the call and finding out more. If you're already in the best plan, Chapter will tell you. If not, they could help you save thousands. It's free, it's fast, and in less than 20 minutes, they're going to review your options. Call the number 27 Medicare today. That's 27 Medicare. And finally feel confident about your Medicare.
The Menendez brothers were denied parole in late August. So what happens next? We'll give you a full recap. Donna Adelson was found guilty last week on all counts. We'll share our final thoughts. And a teenage girl in Michigan was relentlessly cyberbullied for over a year, and the culprit shocked everyone. A new Netflix documentary has brought this case back into the spotlight, and we will dive into it head first. I'm joined today by fellow MK True Crime contributors, my old friend Mark Geragos, famed criminal defense attorney, and Dave Aronberg, the former state attorney for Palm Beach County, Florida, and managing partner at Dave Aronberg Law, who will be joining us a little bit later. Let's start with Menendez. Okay, so Mark, you represent these guys. What happened in the parole hearings?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say you never complimented me like that when you were still working as a prosecutor. So
for the viewers, just so you know, Mark and I go back, I don't want to say decades because it's embarrassing, but decades.
But it's true. It's decades. Back when you were
decades.
in Orange County, California, you were the tough guy, kind of superstar Orange County prosecutor. I used to love to take cases solely. I mean, I almost advertised, I'll take any case with Matt Murphy. I wanted to just go head to head with the best of the best. So,
and the funny thing is, whenever Mark and I would finish a case, honestly, he'd walk out and go, and I would think to myself, if I'm ever in trouble, that's probably the guy that I would hire, especially if I did it. So just background wise, Mark and I go way, way back. So you got into this case, obviously a fascinating one. The whole world, I mean, this was the trial of the century before the actual trial of the century, right? This is a huge case in LA, and you represent them for their parole hearings. So walk us through that. And I should probably correct that. Yeah. You represented them, you got them parole hearings, first of all. Correct. So amazing legal work.
You know, you as a California practitioner will know that there has been kind of a sea change in California. Back when you and I were doing battle down in Orange County in the 90s, that was back at the kind of high water mark of law and order in California, and that was lock them all up, build the prisons. And you might remember, Matt, that the DA who was in the fight of his life for his electoral career was Gil Garcetti. And against that backdrop, the first Menendez case was tried. Leslie Abramson famously tried that and became kind of a pop culture phenomena and did a wonderful job, got 2 hung juries with 2 separate juries, one for Eric, one for Lyle, and they split evenly between murder and manslaughter. The second in between on the retrial was, as you remember, the OJ case, and that was what a lot of people call the trial of the century. I always consider the Menendez case trial one, the trial of the century, because it was televised, and that's what really kind of spawned the True Crime Network. But there was the not guilty in OJ. 8 days after the not guilty, the second trial started. And boy, was that a different trial. They were tried together. They were tried in front of the same judge, but a lot of different rulings. They were convicted life without. Back then, I don't know about you, Matt, but I remember going years without doing a trial that didn't have a life top. Back in the 90s, it seemed like every case we were trying was a life top in California. They were there. As you mentioned, we got them resentenced back in May. And now, fast forward, they converted this kind of safety hearing into a parole hearing. And one of the best parole lawyers around, Heidi Rummel from USC, did their hearings. They were denied, but a minimum denial of 3 years, which means they're eligible again in a year. And now you're supposed to ask me, as the host, pinch hitting, what's next for them? And I'll tell you, what's next is they've still have the clemency that's sitting on the governor's desk. And we have an OSC Ray, the habeas, which the judge issued, which we have briefed, and we're waiting on Judge Ryan to rule on that.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on Newsom? I don't see him doing it. With presidential ambitions that everybody's talking about, I think that this is still so controversial among a lot of people. I can't see him granting clemency, but what do you think? You're obviously a lot closer to this case than I am.
I just think that he's gotten away. Mind you, in full disclosure, I've had my issues with Newsom, especially regarding parole blocks and with cases I've had, especially during COVID. Having said that, he certainly has changed as of late. And I'm hopeful, like I say, hope springs eternal. I'm hopeful that he takes a look at everything they've done and against the backdrop of these parole hearings. And when I say everything they've done, I've been down to that R.J. Donovan prison, which is closer to your old haunt than to mine, down in San Diego. I've seen that green space project. I've seen the hospice project. I've seen the guide dog service projects and all of that. I mean, it really is tremendous work. And I don't know about you, but when I talk to correctional officers, which I do more frequently than probably most, they say they want this incentive for people who are incarcerated, who maybe have a life without, to have an incentive to make the right decision, which these guys did before they had any hope whatsoever. And I just, with some exceptions, don't find everybody to be irredeemable. I mean, obviously there are some people, and we could probably segue into another case almost immediately, but I do not consider them to be irredeemable. I have kind of lived with the family members, and I don't know about you, but I've only had a handful of cases in over 4, going in my 5th decade, where every single living family member wants them out, wants a defendant out.
Well, so I did work at Donovan. We used to do our BPT lifer hearings down there, and just to kind of add to it, and I got to be a little bit careful because I'd never want to ask you anything that could potentially violate attorney-client. But I'll tell you what my prediction is. Your problem in getting them out is I dealt with Dos Cincos in one of my cases, which of course is it's a prison gang down there that I was surprised. I didn't know that Eric had an affiliation with them. So whenever, I did about 100 BPT lifer hearings because as you know, Mark, that was a part of the job in Orange County. They would send us to prisons around the state to attend those BPT lifer hearings. So whenever a murderer was up for parole, we would go in there. And when you had, as a general rule, when a prisoner has recent 115s, so that's the code for major rule violations, as you know, that would almost universally keep them out. But when you had 115s plus gang involvement, the scary thing, I think, for a lot of those commissioners, to forget about all the fame and the high profile nature of the case. Whenever you've got cell phones, the specter of gang involvement, the problem in the modern era is cell phones are very dangerous in prison. And I think Lyle and Eric both got caught multiple times with cell phones. So they can petition in 1 year. I think it takes 18 months before they get another hearing. I could be wrong about that, but you're absolutely right. That 3-year denial is not actually 3 years in the current state of the California penal system, because they really do seem to have a new emphasis on getting people out on parole. So just a prediction from me, I think they're really going to have to keep their noses clean, because if they pick up a 115 between now and then, they're screwed, or at least one of them would be, I think. But I have to say this, Mark, you getting them a parole hearing was remarkable legal work, regardless of where anybody falls on the Menendez brothers, whether they deserve it, whether they're innocent. A lot of high emotions out there from a purely mercenary legal perspective. Removing the right or wrong of the case. You did amazing legal work, in my opinion. Just getting that, I didn't think you had a chance in hell. I'm no fan of George Gascon, but I think that, I think you would have been successful regardless of who the DA was, given the advocacy that I witnessed. So major kudos to you, my friend, for getting that. Now, do I think they should be released? Not to surprise you, Mark. Hell friggin' no, do I think they should be released. But that's a debate. That's a debate between old friends another time, I think.
I think so too. But, talking about, and I could push back, but I'm not going to, I really wanted to talk to you. I was actually excited to see that you were going to be on today, because I wanted to talk to you and get your reaction to what everybody, and at least in my world, and I'm sure yours, is talking about, and that's the Charlie Kirk murder yesterday. And I think that my guess is you're probably inundated with as well. What's your takeaway so far on this, and what do you think in terms of this investigation, and what are they doing, and what's happening here?
So behind the scenes right now, every FBI agent in America is trying to figure out who the man is in that picture. And I predict we're going to see an arrest within 24 hours. That's my guess. I think the escape route looks like it was well planned. So maybe there was continuing plans in effect to get away. Maybe there was a car that was ubiquitous that he could drive away in, or might have even had help. But, this is really a reflection of modern America, right, Mark? We've got such a divisive political climate. And as you know, I mean, we debate for a living, right? We debate between the two of us. We've got over 50 years of professional advocacy. And there's a great quote I wanted to read. I'm a sci-fi nerd. And so this is from an author named Isaac Asimov.
Right. Who was a prolific writer, and boy, one of the great things about him is he's right so often. When you go back and read him, it's uncanny.
Oh yeah, he's a sage for predicting future events and things like that. But he had a quote: "Violence is the last refuge of the incompetent." And when you talk about debate, because that's what Charlie Kirk would engage in, he would go out and in the marketplace of ideas, he would go to universities. And one of the things that I keep hearing is, well, he engaged in hate speech, which is flatly not true. Hate speech, again, and for every lawyer that keeps hearing that, I know Mark has thought the same thing. We all study a case called Brandenburg versus Ohio in law school, and that's where the United States Supreme Court made the legal standard for what is actually hate speech, and what is required is, the way they described it, speech directly aimed at causing immediate illegal acts and likely to do so. In other words, it's incitement to violence. The UK has a different standard, the EU has a different standard, but here in America, spirited disagreement or debate, and Charlie Kirk was a religious guy, he was a man of faith. I'm not personally religious, but when hate speech is a very different thing. It's not speech that you hate. And when you have, what has really disturbed me, Mark, is these TikTok videos. And I don't know if you saw the TMZ clip where when it was announced that he died, suddenly there was a celebration in the background over Harvey Levin's shoulder. There were people cheering that. And that, you and I, Mark, have been it's a weird way to put it. We've been in the murder business for decades. And I just, so many of these people seem really young and naive, and celebrating the idea that somebody who disagrees can be murdered. I'm looking at them thinking, you have no idea what violent crime is. You have no idea what murder is. You've never walked a crime scene. You've never watched the clinical dissection of a human being in a postmortem examination. And you've never dealt with the bereaved family of somebody who has been taken from them because of something like this, or even whether it's a murder and a robbery, murder and a rape, the apoplectic grief of family members. And this man had 2 young kids and a wife who loved him. And when you just take the politics out for a second, to celebrate the death of a 31-year-old man for disagreement disturbs me greatly. And I worry, Mark, about what the reaction is going to be. And some of the stuff I've seen online, people are incredibly angry, not just about the death, but about this support. It's almost like this Mangione case over and over again. The Mangione case, the man who gunned down the United Healthcare CEO, that has nothing to do with healthcare. It has to do with the murder of a human being, also a father with 2. And when you deal in our business and you deal with the human aspect of it, it is really profoundly disturbing to me to see people celebrating. And I want to believe it's a tiny segment of the population. But that video, I watched the whole thing, and you and I both, Mark, we've been to the scenes, we've done these cases, but I've had plenty of murders on video. This one was really disturbing. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on the whole thing?
So it's so interesting the way you've cast this, because I will tell you, one of the first things I did when I saw the TMZ videos, I called Harvey last night, and he was mortified and gave me an explanation that the guys had been watching a car chase. I
saw it. Yeah. I'm not sure I believe it, but I hope it's true.
I've known Harvey for as long as I've known you. I believe him when he tells me that. So putting that aside, though, the thing that you said that really caught my attention, and I was thinking about last night, is, we do this and have done this for decades. Again, I hate to age myself. This idea of being in the courtroom where we're arguing and we're at each other, you or whoever your adversary. And I grew up in an era where you understood that that's what you did, especially in the criminal law. But there was a kind of a collegiality. Once you were out of the courtroom, you could go tooth and nail, hammer and tong with somebody, but you go out of that courtroom and you had a mutual respect. I mean, that's and yours and I's our mutual respect, even going at it in a courtroom, has lasted for years. I mean, we haven't had a case against each other in a number of years, but we still have that kind of adversarial respect and I think collegiality. That is what is missing in the current political discourse. And I used to say, well, this is because of the criminalization of politics. But I think you've hit on something else that I hadn't quite understood. There is almost this kind of a warlike aspect to it, that you've got to kill or you've got to be killed, as opposed to your term, and I'll use it, the marketplace of ideas, which is what we do in a courtroom where you have an adversarial system. And that's, I think, what we don't have. We don't have this idea that you can respectfully disagree, you can argue, yet still go out. Now, mind you, I can't tell you the number of times you've probably had this from victims talking to you. I've had it where defendants get very upset with me because I have that relationship with opposing counsel or DAs, where I'll walk out in the courtroom and I'll talk to you about kids or wife or parents or something, and it's like, what are you doing? Why are you talking to them? Why how can you do that after they're trying to put me away? And I'd say, understand, this is why the system works, because we are advocating to the zealously, yet at the same time we understand we don't cross certain lines.
Well, I totally agree, Mark. And the example, when I was in training, there was a guy named Chris Evans, who you probably encountered more than once, and he was a Superior Court judge in Orange County now, great guy. He said it's like the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner cartoon, where you have the sheepdog and the wolf, and they clock in the morning, they chase each other around. And then at the end, it's like, good night, Phil. Good night, Ralph. That's the way it's supposed to be. I've shaken the hand. I've done, if you count my bench trials, I've done over 250 trials. You probably got even more than me at this point.
I have shaken
the hand.
300. It's just what?
Yeah, I've shaken the hand of my opposing counsel on every single one of them except one, and that's because he stopped talking to me about halfway through the trial, and I didn't try because I knew he wouldn't respond.
You have a better record than me. I've got there's probably 2 hands worth of opposing counsel. But by the way, out of that 2 hands, probably 8 of those 10 were civil opponents, which is
also something, right? Like civil attorneys are the worst. For the viewers, criminal attorneys tend to get along, and there is usually, vast majority of the time, a lot of mutual respect. Like on Menendez, like we were just talking about, I disagree that they got, that Mark has taken it this far, but I really, from a lawyer standpoint, I have nothing but admiration for his competence and his professionalism in getting that done. So there is that ability, and I think you're right, Mark. There's another great quote I want to share. It's been attributed to Socrates, although he didn't say it exactly this way, and that is, when the debate is lost, slander becomes the tool of the loser. And one of the comments I saw online on Charlie Kirk was some guy who said, well, I guess he lost the debate. And that's exactly wrong. They turned him into a martyr. And this is, when he literally had a microphone there that people could come up and debate him. That's what he does or did. And the killer could have done that if he had the debate, if he had the point, if he had the intellectual capacity or competence to come in and offer a counterpoint, then everybody could have heard it and it would have been broadcast. And that's what it's supposed to be. And when you shoot your opponent because you have no comeback, it is, I think, the ultimate expression of losing the debate, in my opinion. I
couldn't agree more. And the video, I think, is why this resonates so strongly across the aisle, so to speak. But what really is offensive is exactly what you kind of put your finger on the pulse of. This idea that we are so angry, we are so divisive that we can't just take a breath and then continue to have a reasonable discussion. And by the way, I mean, what is and I wonder, I mean, and I'll go off onto a slight conspiracy theory here. What do you make of some of these conspiracy theories that are going around right now? One this morning from somebody who I have the utmost respect for and his intellect and his ability to argue is that he now believes that there was a hand signal and that hand signal was, okay, now do it. And then there's been the people who are saying, well, it was timed to the subject matter of the questions. And then once the questions were done, don't you think that the longer this goes on and is not solved, so to speak, to the extent that there is a coherent theory and an arrest, that this can spin out of control?
Oh, 100%. And you know what it is, Mark? It's the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is a formal scientific study showing essentially, if you're really stupid, how would you know? And we see that over and over again. These people want to be the smartest person in the room with their 90 IQ and their complete lack of life experience, and they roll in and have they want to pronounce, oh, I've got it figured out. It's like, and there's a million examples of that in pop culture, from 9/11 to the Kennedy assassination and everything else. There is the Occam's razor, right? The simplest explanation is almost always the correct one. And certainly there's grand exceptions that we encounter throughout life on that, including a lot of the murder cases that we have done. However, I think that's really what it is. I think you're absolutely right. I think the longer it goes, the more of those kooks are going to come out of the woodwork, and they're kooks, sorry. And I think the more, and I'm going to use a word here, these morons, Mark, who are celebrating this are so stupid. They don't understand the enormity of what the murder of another human being and the grief and the multi-generational ripple effect. They're celebrating the worst thing that can happen. And this is not good for America. It is not good when we can't disagree publicly without fear. And who's next on the hit list? For those that are condoning it. And by the way, anybody who says, I don't condone murder, but anything that comes out of their mouth from that point forward, like on Mangione, is condoning murder. And look, I will debate anybody anytime on this. I'm sure you would too, Mark. It's like we have to be able to talk to each other. We have to be able to disagree. And it is very much, I think, to the benefit of the left, to the Democratic Party, to everybody that leans that way, that this guy be caught and they distance themselves from him as soon as possible. Those are my thoughts on that. Next, our thoughts on Donna Adelson's guilty verdict and who is next on the justice train. If you have any questions or comments for us, you can now email mktruecrime@devilmaycaremedia.com. We would love to hear from you.
When inflation jumps, when you hear the national debt is over $37 trillion, do you ever think maybe now would be a good time to buy some gold? Well, you'd be right. Whether as a hedge against inflation, peace of mind during global instability, or just for sensible diversification, Birch Gold Group believes every American should own physical gold. And so they created something special. Until September 30th, if you're a first-time gold buyer, Birch Gold is offering a rebate of up to $10,000 in free metals on qualifying purchases. To claim eligibility and start the process, request an info kit right now. Just text MK to 989898. Plus, Birch Gold can help you roll an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold, and you're still eligible for a rebate in free metals of up to 10 grand. So make right now your first time to buy gold and take advantage of a rebate up to $10,000 when you buy before September 30th. Text MK to the number 989898 to claim your eligibility and get your free info kit.
Now, Donna Adelson was found guilty last week, and I can't wait to get some thoughts from both of you, but particularly you, Dave. You're connected to this case. Let's play SOT 6, and I want to get your reaction.
We have a jury find as follows as to count one of the indictment, first-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder. Mrs. Adelson, control yourself.
All right, Dave, let us have it. What's your response to that? Now, of course, we've done a million trials between you, Mark, and I. Sometimes they react, sometimes they don't, but you're close to this case, so tell us your thoughts.
Justice served. I didn't see any waterworks there, Matt. I saw a woman crying out saying that she is innocent. Actually, the jury foreperson said that she said, you're convicting an innocent woman. This was her way, essentially, of lashing out. This was not a sad woman. This was a woman who's angry because she's never been held accountable for anything in her life before. And now her son is in prison for life. She's going to prison for life. And her daughter, Wendy, is next. So I don't feel any sorrow for her. I don't feel any feeling for her other than good, you got justice, and more to come.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. Mark, let's talk a little bit about client control. That's a concept that most viewers have no idea what that means. You are famous for some of the best client control in the business. When you have a defendant like that, you get a client who's already been admonished at least once by the court for having outbursts. What do you think? Client control failure? Just her last gasp? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I've often wondered, and I've got my father's portrait over my shoulder when he was a hard charging prosecutor like you two, and then was my partner for many years. And he and I always would talk about why I am insistent that during a trial that there is no kind of show of obvious emotion. You don't act out. You don't do anything along those lines if you can at all help it. But I understand once the verdict comes, just this kind of being aghast, so to speak. I've been there, and you two probably have had the same thing. I've been there when somebody has testified, and it is the hardest thing in the world to control yourself as somebody is saying something that you just know is a bald-faced lie. But in this case, the last thing I'm going to do is second guess her. If it is true, and Dave and I talked about this, Matt, I don't know if you've heard the same thing. If it's true that she was offered a time served deal and she just got convicted and is facing life, that's got to be one of the great gambles made and lost of all time. That at that age, you turn down time served and you got life. If it's untrue, it still makes a apocryphal story. But at the same time, I don't think that was acting. I think she honestly believed that she was going to be acquitted. That's my read from the cheap seats.
So, Dave, we had, again, famously, we had evidence in that where she was, she wanted to have her 2 Jewish grandkids dress up like Hitler and convert to Christianity, and she called them gibbers. And this is a woman who hated the victim. So in light of that, is that emotional reaction in your mind, or is that theater, or is that just her final F you to the jury? What do you think?
She looks at the jury with contempt. She looks at Tallahassee with contempt. And this is her way of saying, you hayseeds, how dare you convict me? I could buy and sell each and every one of you. That's the interpretation I got from this. And as far as what Mark said, yeah, Mark and I had discussed this, but the time served offer supposedly went to Katie Magbanawa, the shot girl girlfriend of Charlie Adelson. She turned that down. Now she's in prison for life. There was just a rumor that there was an offer to Donna to give her time served in exchange for turning on Wendy, which was never going to happen. And the state attorney's office denied that deal was ever proposed. So she was going to go down for it because she and Charlie were the ones who set this whole thing up. Remember, here's a woman who thought she was so smart that she laundered money. Literally, she took money laundering literally. She put it in a washer, dryer, and it came out still soggy and moldy. So not the smartest criminal, but she thought she was. And I think that reaction from her was finally having her day of reckoning upon us.
So in 1 minute, Dave, break down, what do you think is going to happen with Wendy? Everybody wants to know that. Are they going to take a run at her? And if so, what do you think the most persuasive evidence is against Wendy?
Wendy was at the crime scene. Why? She had to drive out of her way to get there. She was on the block. She didn't inquire into her kids who were supposedly in the care of the person whose house was now covered with police tape. Didn't care. She tried to set up her boyfriend, allegedly, at the time, asking him, even after they broke up, when are you leaving? When are you going? And Donna had Danny's make, model, and license plate of his car in her planner 2 years after the divorce. How did she get that? I'll give you one guess. So that's just some of the evidence against Wendy.
So, Mark, in California, which is different than Florida, I actually looked this up. Florida, for an accessory after the fact, has a 30-year sentence, accessory after the fact to murder. In California, Dave, this might be my news to you coming from Florida, California has a 36-month maximum for accessory after the fact to murder with a 50% good time work time. So the most you can do actual custody time for an accessory after the fact is 18 months. Custody time. So by the time the trial rolls around, that's almost always CTS or credit time served. What do you think, Mark? Wendy's case?
1623, last time I looked, which means the presumption is 2 years, you do one.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, for an aggravated accessory after the fact to murder, the maximum you're going to do is 18 months. But Mark's right. The sentencing guidelines basically call for, unless there's aggravating features, you got to do midterm, which is 1 year. It's pretty incredible, huge difference. But in my view, Mark, Wendy right now seems like the toughest of the bunch. Any thoughts? I could see you defending somebody like Wendy.
I think there's a reason that they have not brought the case against her. Dave is much more into the weeds than I am, but I always I default to my experience, which is if they have not brought her in, I mean, a smart prosecutor, in my mind, would have brought charges against her and her mother at the same time. I always say the difference between the mafia and the prosecution is that the mafia spares the women and children, but the most prosecutors will bring them together, hoping that somebody will kind of pull the ripcord and say, okay, I give up, I'll take the fall. And that wasn't done here. This is much more the serial nature of this is very unusual in my experience, at least. The idea of going one by one just is very highly unusual and is not the usual case when you're prosecuting murder cases.
Yeah, well, we'll be keeping our eye on this one for sure. Sure will be interesting to see. Dave, I know you have limited time. Why don't you walk us quickly through the Kendra Licari case? What's that all about?
I watched the most shocking thing on Netflix, and I couldn't believe it. I don't want to give any spoilers out, but let's give some spoilers out. So this was this case up in a rural part of Michigan where this poor girl in high school got an unending series of text messages, threatening text messages, telling her to die, kill yourself, you're disgusting, you're too thin, and all these horrible sexual messages to try to break her and her boyfriend up. And eventually they did break up. And these text messages continued against the boyfriend. And then when the boyfriend found a new girlfriend, it even continued against the new girlfriend's mother. And it were thousands of these messages at all hours. And they knew details about the victim and the boyfriend that no one else knew, and people were shocked. They were trying to figure out, how can we find out who did this? And the local police were stymied. So finally the FBI came in and they traced it. And you know who did it? I still can't believe this. The victim's mother. The victim's mother.
I'm sorry. Let's play that shot. We've got play shot 4, please. Or is it?
A high school girl in Michigan was cyberbullied for more than a year.
And who turned out to be the suspect shocked everyone.
It was so bad to the point where I didn't want to even go to school anymore.
It was relentless. 1 a.m, 3 a.m. I would question how I thought about myself.
There's some sick messages.
They were enough to make a 53-year-old man blush.
It's crazy how having a phone could become the worst thing that happened to me.
Things are about to get so much worse.
Everything was great, and then, things started happening.
Parents wanted to confront people and start pointing fingers.
When they involve the FBI, you can just see how fast this escalates.
They made quite a scene at school.
I wanted to try to protect her and keep her safe.
I found one phone number that kept coming up.
We gotta nail this son of a...
I really didn't know what to say.
This is disgusting.
No way.
Crazy that someone that close could do something like that.
Okay, let's go right into the next shot. Let's connect that to the sentencing, if we could. If you could please play shot number 5.
I never want to hurt anyone else like I have already done. I actually look forward to continuing my work and continuing my progress daily. I have caused a lot of damage to my family.
So Dave, what do you think? Munchausen syndrome by proxy is one of the things that they claim. Give us a quick rundown on that, and how much time did she get?
She got, I think, 1.5 years, and I don't know how much time she served. And she wants to reestablish a relationship with her daughter. Her daughter wants the relationship. It's like Stockholm Syndrome, but the daughter wants to be back with the mother, and the mother's not allowed to have contact with the daughter yet. The poor husband, they were essentially in the poorhouse because the wife, the mother here, took control of their finances, but was out of a job, didn't tell the family she had no employment, and this is how she spent her days, terrorizing her daughter, driving her to the point of suicide, which thankfully she didn't attempt as far as we know, but encouraging suicide. The whole thing is so crazy, and it had to be Munchausen's by proxy, where the mother is trying to, I guess, be the savior to the daughter who's crying to her every day to try to get publicity. And also the mother wanted to have a relationship apparently with the boyfriend because she kept showing up at his sporting events. She kept trying to bother him even after they had broken up. So the whole thing is sick. This woman is sick, and I just think she got off a little easy based on the terror and the horror she committed to her own family and the community.
Well, as I say, truth is stranger than fiction. Dave, I know you got to run. Thank you so much for joining us today. And next, your emails, our closing arguments, and updates in the bizarre Burning Man homicide investigation. Stay tuned.
You might know the feeling of FOMO, fear of missing out, but here is one thing you do not want to miss. protecting your future with life insurance. For about the price of one streaming service, you can get the coverage you need with SelectQuote. Even if this is your first time thinking about life insurance, they make it simple. For over 40 years, SelectQuote has helped more than 2 million Americans secure more than $700 billion in coverage. Okay, let me tell you why I'm laughing. Because this is a life insurance ad that began with talking about your fear of FOMO. So it's like, yeah, you are going to mow. Kind of the rest of eternity, you're going to be mowing. There's really nothing any life insurance company can do about it. But SelectQuote has nonetheless helped millions of people who want to at least plan for the people who remain to be well looked after. Now, that makes sense. That makes sense to me. This is a broker. They're going to work for you for free. They're going to compare policies from trusted top-rated companies to match your health, lifestyle, and budget. Some providers even offer same-day coverage. That's good, with no medical exam. Even better. And if you've got a pre-existing condition, no problem. SelectQuote partners with companies that cover people with high blood pressure, diabetes, or heart disease. Life insurance is never cheaper than it is today. Get the right life insurance for you for less and save more than 50% at SelectQuote.com/Megan. SelectQuote.com/Megan, so you do not have FOMO.
We'll get to your questions and our own closing arguments, but first we want to bring you an update on the Burning Man murder. For those of you who've been following the story, a young man, 37 years old, named Vadim Kruglov, was stabbed in the throat on August 30th at the Burning Man Festival. This is a big mystery. There was a person they described as the unhinged man. And at Burning Man, there's plenty of drugs, lots of people. We all know what Burning Man is. Mark, what are your thoughts on this one? They're going to find this guy. There's rewards out there. Seems like a big melee. What are your thoughts?
They'll find him. The witness statements are people who've identified an unhinged man who was going around talking and connected to, I believe, a recreational vehicle. I think it's only a matter of time before they kind of get into or figure out exactly who it is, and just a horrible, horrible crime. I hate to say it, but Burning Man it's the opposite of what people go to Burning Man and hope for.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it, Mark? Like you got a festival that I don't want to say they promote the use of drugs, but I know people that have gone to this, and it's a big drug fest, and I'm surprised that there isn't more violence at this, quite frankly. When people are out of their minds, and we've seen this. How many times have we seen methamphetamine-related murders, Mark? I mean, how many? I'll bet you that you personally have handled a couple of dozen where either meth is on board the killer, meth is on board the victim.
I'll tell you, I've got an alley behind my building in downtown LA that is formerly called Lebanon Alley. I now call it Fentanyl Alley. And I would venture to say, I don't think I'm exaggerating, when I would say that this year alone, there's probably been 10 deaths in that alley. It's just... Yeah. I don't remember, you and I are both old enough to remember PCP and that kind of 90s phenomena. We're back, the 90s are calling, and they brought back some even stronger drugs.
Right, isn't it amazing? On my caseload in homicide one time, I think I had 18 cases at the time, 12 of them, like we counted it out. It was either over a meth deal, it was, and meth is almost... It's almost losing its hipness in the drug world, and you're right. We're back to fentanyl and heroin and that sort of thing. But meth, for whatever reason, and a lot of these designer drugs really do make people lose their friggin' minds. And I don't know what it is. They love to stab each other. I don't think I saw. I
don't know what it is too about there's something about the drug that activates that, I will tell you. And also, it's so amazing you say that. There was a Judge Younger, Eric Younger, his dad was Ebel, who was the AG in California. But Eric Younger used to talk about in the 80s that possession of cocaine with intent to sell was the parking ticket of the LA Superior Court. And I used to take it a step farther. I'd say it is amazing to me to sit in a criminal courtroom and see how many of the crimes that come through there are drug related, whether it is a burglary to get drug money, whether it is an assault as a result of a drug deal gone wrong, whether it is a murder because somebody is freaking out of their mind. It is an incredible phenomenon when you think about it, and reminds me of what the one sheriff of LA County once said, is that he's running the sheriff's department, and the jail is the largest mental health facility in the world.
Yeah, it's spot on, isn't it? And it's a chicken or egg thing, right? Is it because of the drugs that they're crazy, or are they mentally ill to begin with, and then they start using drugs as a way of self-medicating? But we'll be following this one. It's quite a case, but you and I both know where the defense is going. It's going straight towards methamphetamine-induced psychosis or ketamine-induced psychosis or something else. But anyway, we'll be watching that one closely. Let me read something. This is a question for you, Mark, from Missy Springer. And this is a great one. I would love to have you answer this. From Missy, I've wondered if the defense attorneys want the defendant to tell the truth in order to better serve the client, assuming they are guilty, or if the defense attorneys can better defend if they don't actually know if the client is innocent or guilty. Can you discuss? And before you answer that, Mark, I got to tell you, making the transition from being a prosecutor into doing some defense work, and I'm very, very selective about the cases I take. I mostly defend police officers now, but I'm a real rookie when it comes to questions like that. Do you want to know the truth from your clients or not? I would love to hear your thoughts.
Let me tell you, and I've thought about this quite a bit, and I talk to new clients about this quite a bit. When you come in and you are either charged or suspected of committing a crime, I explain to clients, look, you are facing the government, whether it's the state or the feds. They have to prove their case. If you start to tell me your side of this story, before I know what the government knows, before anything, before I've seen a police report, if you've already done a preliminary hearing or you've been indicted, before I've seen a transcript, you put me in an impossible situation. If you tell me something, you believe it, and that was your story, and I later learn that you were mistaken, you didn't know, or what you've said or you truly believe is not accurate, I've been put in an ethical dilemma where I cannot now put you on the stand, because I cannot put somebody on the stand if I know that what they are saying, if I'm basically suborning perjury. The ethical rules require that you have to if the client testifies, even over your advice, you have to let them testify. It's one of the areas where the client can overrule a lawyer. So I do not want them to tell me their version of the facts. I want to do my investigation. I want to get whatever information I can first. I want to know what the government knows before I start questioning you. And people will say, well, that's kind of cynical or it's devious. Or it is not, because I will tell you, I've had the experience where a client has sat in my office early on in my career, told me a story of what they thought happened. And I said, that's complete bullshit. I don't buy it. And then they told me a second story. And I said, that story is even worse than the first one you just told me. I could never sell that story in a million years. Then they told me the third story, which was the truth, but it was so embarrassing to them that they didn't want to admit it. And so that's part of the problem. I'm not the judge. I'm not the jury. I'm not the fact finder. I'm there to defend you. And the only way I can defend you is to know the universe of facts and what the government knows, because I'm there to defend against the government. You, as a prosecutor, have a different duty. You're to seek truth. I'm here to zealously defend.
Well, there's a great adage that I heard, I think in law school: only a fool lies to their doctor, but only a real idiot lies to their criminal defense lawyer. Why don't we go into 1 minute closing arguments? Mark, any topic that you want to rant on for a minute? Take a shot, buddy.
I'm going to make the Charlie Kirk. I'm going to end with the Charlie Kirk closing argument. For those who, and Matt referred to it. I watched some TikToks last night of people kind of celebrating the death because they didn't agree with him, or there were kind of montages of things that he had said, and especially with gun violence, and okay, well, kind of you're foisted on the on your own words, or hoisted on your own petard, so to speak, and that you deserve it, or be careful what you sow. I think that is despicable, and I will tell you why. If you can't engage in an argument, and if you can't sit and try to persuade somebody that your position is correct, what you have done is you have reduced the idea of rationality, reason, and persuasion to the point where it's primal and it is not civilized. And what I mean, civilized in the traditional sense of civilization. We cannot move forward if we decide we are going to kill people we disagree with. Because if we get to that point, then literally it's the law of the jungle.
Well, this is one of those occasions where I totally agree with Mark Geragos. It is absolutely, utterly reprehensible. Anybody celebrating that has never lost a loved one to violent crime or to murder, and you can tell that because anybody who's experienced that kind of grief would never behave in some of the ways that we're seeing. I only hope that people on the right side of the political spectrum take the high road here and understand that they're not going to stoop to the same kind of stuff. They haven't yet, and I hope they don't. I fear for our future as a country, and if you can't debate, especially respectfully, or disagree, we are in big trouble. So. Thanks to my fellow contributors, and thank you for joining us today at MK True Crime. Send us your story suggestions, questions, and comments at mktruecrime@devilmaycaremedia.com. Next show drops Wednesday, and everybody please have a great weekend.